Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome. If you have your, nice to see you, Betsy. Nice to see you, Deb and Angela. If you do have a camera available, again, this is going to be really interactive. So I'm hoping you could switch it on. I understand that some people are in some kind of circumstances where they can't, whether they're driving or on their way somewhere, or just don't feel presentable. That's totally fine to have your camera off. I'm hoping though, most people get their cameras on by the end of this. Welcome everyone. I'm really excited to bring everyone together. I see some familiar faces and some other people are coming in now into the session that aren't necessarily familiar faces. So I want to start with asking everyone this question. So I'll just share the screen and bear with me for a second. So here it comes. Where are you tuning in from? What's your educational role and what brought you here? So maybe what brought you here, someone else shared this with you, or your PBL coordinator, you're looking to support your staff in some way, your teacher, you're looking how to more effectively assess. So what brought you here, where are you tuning in from, and what's your role? So just type that into the chat window. All right, so nice to see you, Christine. Christine's wonderful, got a great program over there in Japan, helping learners all across the world to connect, be more socially, globally, emotionally aware, and does a lot of projects. So great to see you. Great to see you, Betsy from Guatemala. What time is it there?
It's 5:30 a.m.
That is commitment. All right. I was expecting people from the Western Hemisphere might not tune in, so that's wonderful. You got your hat on. It must be cold, huh? All right.
It is a chilly morning.
Yeah, different day. Nice to see you, Angela from Taiwan, Taipei American School. Nice to see you. Really inspired by the work that she's doing with students, and she's exploring identity and really getting students into looking more at identity and post-COVID identity through project-based experiences. So welcome, Angela Maheen. Great to see you as well. Maheen's part of a group in Beacon House. Wonderful. I encourage everybody to check them out. Wonderful organization doing a lot of project-based experiences, very learner-centric, and very much kind of Montessori, Reggio Emilia stuff. So welcome to see you, Maheen. Maheen, is anyone else joining? Is Miriam here? I can't see. I think she joined.
Yes, Mariam is also here and Miss Bina is also here.
Okay, wonderful. Nice to see you.
I'm here, Kyle. Hi.
Hi, hello. Nice to see you. Great. So yeah, we got a couple of people tuning in from Pakistan. We got a couple of people tuning in Taipei American School. Deb, do you want to introduce yourself really quick? Because she's going to be kind of co-facilitating this a little bit.
Hi everyone, yeah, Debbie McNally. So I'm currently in Oxford in England, and I've been working really closely with Kyle for quite a few years because I'm connected with the Yuchong and Yuhua schools in Hong Kong and China. And yeah, my current role is senior curriculum officer, and as part of that, I'm in charge of assessment for all of our schools. And I also, I'm hugely passionate about project-based learning. So trying to bring the two of them together. So hi, it's brilliant to see you all.
Wonderful. And a lot of people too, you know, they ask about inquiry and project-based learning, where does it all fit in? And I say, you know, that that all fits together, right? I mean, all great project-based experiences are going to start from curiosity, wonder, and inquiry. And it's great to have people on all different ends of the spectrum. Some people have a bit of an MYP or PYP background. Some people have, you know, more of maybe a Reggio Emilia or Montessori kind of background. And all those are great because it's very learner centric. So nice to see you. Deb's going to be chiming in a little bit. I'm going to show your assessment kind of framework in a context, and I think it'll be easy for you to chime in. So again, nice to see everyone. I'm recognizing most of these faces. Muhammad, I don't necessarily recognize your face. Muhammad, where are you tuning in from? All right, maybe he's not ready to speak. Felicia, are you okay to share where you tuning in from?
I'm in Shanghai.
Wonderful. And what's your educational role?
I'm a grade 1 PYP teacher.
Okay, cool. All right, excellent. So great to see you guys all here. I wanted to make this as discussion based as possible. Of course, you know, you wouldn't all show up if you didn't expect to get something out of it. So there will be something that you are going to get out of it, because sometimes discussions can end up, you know, going in many different directions. And I want to somewhat keep it focused because I know assessment can be something that we can talk for days around. And I want to just give the opportunity to hear just, you know, how a couple schools are really tackling this big subject of assessment, especially within project-based experiences, and then give a bit of a framework that I've been working on, kind of adapting, that is a real simple kind of one pager that you're going to kind of walk away with to be able to use right away. So something you're going to walk away with and also have a discussion. I wanted to, you know, start with this because I think a lot of people experience a lot of challenges or headaches. Anyone care to just share, just to kind of give us a background, what are the biggest challenges we're kind of facing with PBL assessment? I might call in some people if no one shares, but you can just unmute yourself.
Well, if you allow me, Kyle, one of the things, and just for you guys as a reference, Kyle mentored teachers in my school for a year, right? In different PD sessions. And one of the things that keeps arising is precisely the fact of how some teachers think that PBL cannot be assessed. Some teachers think that. Other teachers assume that because we are, you know, using this methodology that is more active, more student-centered, there is no opportunity to bring in some traditional assessment, and that's wrong. We have nothing against traditional assessment, you know, popping in a quiz now and then. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's really hard for them. I see that as a challenge. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was coaching a teacher, and she brought it up, and I told her, in fact, PBL gives you the opportunity to, you know, do that occasional check-in, and that's where you can bring in a little bit of that traditional assessment. And then the other piece, which is key, is the fact that when you're assessing, it's an opportunity for you to let your students know what the expectations are and see if they are achieving those expectations. They need to know that beforehand. And that's where our rubrics jump in. You know, the importance of having that checklist, of having those parameters, if you want to call it that way, their standards, where you're taking them with all this PBL journey. So is assessment important? Yes, it is. Is PBL being assessed? Yes, of course. You need to have, you know, yesterday in your 9th session, I was listening, and you remind me of the fact of a role in PBL, which is mentoring, monitoring, and that's where the assessment, you know, is shown, because you are constantly checking for your students' progress, if they are achieving those expectations. So I think that's one of the greatest challenges, to help teachers see how this whole process is assessed, is, you know, constantly being followed up on, and how you can help your students see if they are really achieving or reaching those expectations that you have set for them.
Great. I was looking for the little cheer button when you were mentioning about PBL assessment being a lot of feedback, right? And it's a lot of reflection. So, typical traditional assessment might be one and done, move on, get a grade. And that's something maybe it's hard for teachers to understand. And then you also mentioned too, yes, you can get to those traditional skills and standards. Maheen, you said authenticity. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. Oftentimes in PBL, we end up, especially since I teach grade 3 kids, so sometimes when the topic or whatever they're working on is a tad bit more complex, we allow them to work in groups. Now, the only problem I face with that is to assess how much of the work has been done by each individual student. So if I want to, obviously, when we're assessing a student, we want to know how that skill is in that particular student. So that's what I find a tad bit difficult dealing with the authenticity of it. So the end product or whatever they've created, they might as a group show that the skill is, truly inculcated in them. But how many of them actually have that personally as well? So that's what I kind of struggle
Certainly. Okay, so great. Certainly a challenge, authenticity of really assessing individuals within a group. Felicia, you said time consuming. Do you mean time consuming in terms of because maybe individuals have so many different projects or moving parts where it's not just one set assessment?
No, it's because we have to assess the students. The students have to assess themselves. We have to get it on Seesaw. It takes quite a while when it should be like in the moment. We should be able to kind of see what's happening. By the time I get it onto Seesaw or be able to show what they've done, it's quite a while afterwards. I need something that's more quick and effective for both the students and myself to be able to see that we have learned something. I find that projects are done hastily and in a rush. And because of that, now we're like, oh, you know what, let's just skip projects and go back to a traditional form of assessment. And I'm like, no. Projects are really important. But because of the time consuming nature of it, it's becoming a fight to get to them to be part of the curriculum.
Okay, yeah, and I wonder too if as you mentioned a Seesaw, because I think I saw some people nodding their heads, right? A lot of people probably use that to show, and monitor progress of students. And you're having to get that up constantly, right? So it's very kind of time consuming to do that. And as you mentioned, a lot of stuff is in the moment, right? And how do we capture that? And if they're expecting assessment to be coming all the time and always putting things up, that could take a lot of time, right? When we know, hey, sometimes we're not going to report out until the end, right? And especially because we're gathering consistent feedback before we're actually going to give them a mark of some sort. Okay, so it seems like, I see everybody's contribution. Sorry to get to everyone. There will be plenty of times to chime in, so don't worry. I'll just push enter. Let's follow along in the chat window, because in the chat window is where we're going to do a bit of our discussions, and keep track of things as we're kind of going along. But I think we all understand it could be very time consuming and challenging. Betsy also mentioned too, in terms of traditional kind of standards and skills and how does that fit in. And if we do have all these moving parts and kids, as Felicia mentioned, doing self-assessment, everything else, how as teachers are we able to keep track of all this? Not just keep track of all this, but build this kind of thing so that we don't revert back to traditional learning. Because I think a lot of us have backtracked. A lot of schools have backtracked during this last semester. I hear it everywhere. People are tired. They've not experienced 2 months or 2.5 months of this kind of learning again, right? Because they've been virtual or whatnot. So people are going to backtrack. So I'm going to hope to help provide you with a bit of a simple framework that helps others maybe not to backtrack, because I know a lot of us are in a coaching kind of mentoring position. And so what I'm going to provide just is a simple assessment framework. This simple assessment framework is really well designed to take teachers from a bit of maybe a traditional unit and just kind of quickly PBLify it, so it doesn't feel like it's so time consuming that it's going to take so much work and that they don't necessarily have that time to plan. And I was going to have us chat a little bit about what words describe effective assessment, but actually let's do that really quickly, okay? Really quickly, in the next 30 seconds, that's all it's going to take. What is like a word that describes effective assessment, would you say? What are things we're looking for to say this is effective assessment? You might say ongoing might be something, but just write in the chat window in the next 30 seconds, just one word. All right, here's a window for sharing. I want to get some more voices in. Just one word. Get some other people to share. Similar, okay. Coming up similar, great. Okay, I definitely see a lot of similar words, but let's hear from Miriam. You said ongoing. So can you explain what you mean by ongoing?
Kyle, by ongoing, I mean that we will be, the assessment should be designed in a way that they kind of, you're able to assess the learning process, the content, the product development, the final product. That means that you are assessing the child on every step, every milestone of the project, so that you can assess the skills, the knowledge, the abilities, the thoughts, and all of it at the end makes it to the final product, and then that you will be assessing that also.
Okay, so ongoing mean there's a lot of kind of milestones that you're assessing along the way to have lots of evidence. And I think too, you know, some people are mentioning, you mentioned monitors growth, right? Because that's what something we're looking for, right? It's not just a one and done and then we move on. We're really trying to see growth. And let's see, holistic. Mehak, can you explain what do you mean by holistic for assessment?
Okay, I think Mariam actually explained a bit of what I had in mind for holistic as well. So it's not only the content, we're also assessing the development of the skills of the students and their growth as, you know, self-directed learners and their collaborative skills. All of that is being assessed and from where they are. So it's very individual for everybody. Every child is going to be making progress from where he or she is. So it's personal growth. So, and I think Mariam actually explained it very well when she was talking about ongoing assessment, which is another thing that I do with that assessment is taking place from day one till the last. So the feedback, and then they're going back and improving it. So it's, I think Mariam, she just
Great. So there's a consistent feedback loop, as you mentioned. You said individualized as well as part of this holistic picture, right? So it's you are getting, you know, individual data and during assessment points. Okay, Deb, I'm gonna probably get to you in a couple of slides, so I'm gonna let you hold that thought in terms of progression because I'm gonna show something you came up with in the context of a project-based experience. So what I mean, so let's say, okay. We said these are all the things of effective assessment. And you know, Betsy might be looking at this, others who coach teachers potentially are trying to move them over to PBL. This is kind of how a lot of our traditional assessment looks like. And what is wrong with this picture? I mean, it seems like there's a number of different activities, quizzes, tests, homework. I mean, this seems holistic, right? I mean, you got different points and you're going to add it up and get a final grade. And you know, then divide it by how many assignments there were, how many points possible. So what's wrong with this picture? Maybe let's get Amanda. What's wrong with this picture?
Nice, Kyle. Thanks. Well, somebody wrote it in the chat box. One thing that's wrong is that the project is the last step and then there isn't reflection along the way.
Okay. No reflection along the way. Project is the last step. Great. And Deb, I see you kind of looking at the picture. Anything else you want to point out on this? Because we're going to look at an alternative model in a second.
Yeah, just the fact that it's so linear, you know, so you have to do the quiz and then you do an activity and then you do the test, and you know, it doesn't have to be in this order. The project, like my sense is the project should be in the middle, and then everything else kind of around it, so that it feeds into that at the end. You know, and the arrows are back and forth, so everything leads towards, yes, it feeds into the project, but the project also feeds out into those other activities.
Nice. I like that visual, right? The idea that project kind of being in the center, there's activities and stuff that surround it to get to that deeper level of understanding, but then it's feeding out as well, because students are sometimes doing things within the project that are feeding outwards and helping them gain kind of other understandings that feed into these other activities that might branch off of that. I really like that visual.
And then also, sorry, Kyle, just to add to that, like that would mean that all of the points for all of the other things, they may be valid, but the project shouldn't have separate points. It should just be all part of that.
Great. Yeah, it should be, there should be something kind of centralizing that. Some people have it as like the big inquiry question, right? If you're in an inquiry kind of background, some people has that project that's driving it, but there should be some central force that's driving things to a deeper kind of level. Otherwise, you know, we're just moving from assessment and reporting out. And Felicia, I'm going to get to your question around the inquiry cycle in a second here. So I want to just take you through a bit of a case study. It was teachers who, you know, they were teaching year 9. And I know that we have some elementary teachers, but don't worry, this is just a framework we're going to present you with, and this will very easily relate to elementary as well. And, you know, it was a novel study that they typically did around The Great Gatsby. If you're not American, I apologize for this reference. The Great Gatsby is a very big book, but it's centered all around, you know, you've probably seen the movie, around this whole concept of the 1920s and this life of Great Gatsby. And, you know, they went through the novel study. Of course, they did their readings. As you see that, they're reading quizzes, they had character analysis, they had a test, you know, some kind of activity. Probably all of us have seen this. In the end of the book, they're going to do something meaningful, potentially, where they're going to maybe write an essay, do a compare and contrast of, does that actually exist today, the American dream? Maybe get illustrations or some kind of presentation that kids do and they stand up. The problem with that, of course, you know, as we've already pointed out, is, you know, you're not necessarily going, you are going to a deep level with the book, but in terms of what students are doing, the authentic outcome, you know, and the opportunity for them really to do something of meaning and create isn't really coming here to the end, as opposed to, what if we use a novel as a lens, or, you know, to get to a deeper kind of question or a deeper kind of project-based experience. And so here is, you know, a better approach. And Deb, I apologize because I didn't fully set you up for this. However, I think you're smart enough to look at the visual that you created and talk about how it works in this approach. So a better approach, right? You're taking the same kind of big concepts that you're hoping to get to from this whole novel study, but you're really saying, okay, what's this about? What's a bigger, deeper inquiry, bigger question? And this is, you know, working with a few of these teachers to change that novel setting into, okay, it's about the American dream. How does American dream really going to relate to our students? Our students are of low socioeconomic background. They, you know, we teach in a very impoverished region, and they don't connect to this necessarily. So, you know, reframing, reshifting, how can sharing stories from the American community, or sorry, from the community, help us reimagine the American dream? And everything is feeding in to this thing is what's driving it, right? This blog and this podcast that students are going to produce to really feature community stories to redefine the American dream is a centerpiece for all this. And Deb, do you want to explain a little bit about this diagram you created and how things fit together?
Yeah, sure. Just checking on back. So the idea is that you know what your summative assessment is, and I'm using summative and formative here in very, you know, general terms. So summative just means what the students will demonstrate, or how the students will demonstrate their understanding at the end of a unit. So the summative assessment, you know what that is. So in this case, it's going to be the published blog and the podcast, right? So then what you need to do is you need to think about, well, how do I know that the students are making the progress they need to make to do the best possible work they can towards that final piece of work? And so you design your assessments in the time frame that you have so that you're always checking in, and whatever it is that the students demonstrate to you through your low stakes assessment is then added onto and feeds into, you know, maybe that medium term or medium stake assessment that comes in the middle. Whether that is, you know, for this, I would suggest that it's a first draft that they submit of the blog. And all of this feeds then into, like, the arrows are trying to show you that they feed into this final assessment. It's really important that you do the diagnostic at the beginning. And the diagnostic can be something really simple. It can be just about, you know, what do students understand about a blog or a podcast? How's that structure look, or whatever. It could even be that is their first draft, that you just ask them to create a really quick blog. And then they've got that to look at right at the beginning, and then they can reflect on where they are at the end of the unit, because each of these little, you know, your teaching and your facilitation throughout the program, the time of the project-based learning gives them understanding of how this can be made better by the end. So
Great.
Yeah, so you're just always working on getting to the end, but they know what the end product is, you know what the end product is. They can go away and do their own research and look at more blogs and listen to more podcasts and get some better ideas. That doesn't have to be set by you. This is something that they can take initiative.
Yeah, I love what you described too, creating a quick interview, you know, analyzing a podcast, because it's immediately putting them in the lens or the context of what they're creating, as opposed to, you know, that paper pencil kind of diagnostic that sometimes we, you know, do before entering and learning. So I think that's a great idea. I didn't think as diagnostic. I always thought diagnostic as being, you know, something that's not very interesting for kids. This is a great diagnostic. And you hit it right in the head. That medium stake is going to be one of their first drafts, right? Where we are able to see a little bit of their creation process. We're able to give them feedback that, of course, is feeding in to this. So, I mean, it's not necessarily like this is separated, right? We want to see these things as all fitting together. Okay, now I'm going to erase this. And any questions, comments on this, feel free to write it in the chat box. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of move us on. All right, so let's give a round of applause for Deb for creating this. We like simple. I think this is quite simple. All right, so I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. Now, one of the things, Deb, you mentioned at the beginning was the whole project being the center focal point, right? Not necessarily the end, right? The end product, of course, the summative is finally it's polished, right? But they should be working on this throughout. So I'm going to give us a quick step-by-step process that's going to help us transition, you know, our units, our traditional units, and look at how do we transition, PBLify that, I guess, and how do we assess it. So what we really want to do is find what is this deeper, bigger question, you know, of the units that we've currently designed, whether it's science, whether it's in math, whether it's in language arts, English, whether it's in social studies, right? And some of this has been done for us in our curriculum, but some of this we're going to have to do ourselves. Once we find that deeper question, you know, this whole idea, is the American dream accessible, right? So now we're going to try to think and get our wheels turning. All right, that's a kind of a big question out there. It's very inquiry based. But what's the project students are going to do around it? Now, of course, it's best to really engage learners around this and help them consider, well, what could we do around this whole question? As they're, you know, exploring it. The quicker you can get them in the lens of what they might be producing or creating, the more you're going to be able to really fit your assessments and everything around that. So I know I've mentioned this in Beacon House. We had a whole session on co-design. If you feel quite confident in co-design, get students really looking into the book that you might be reading, asking this big question, getting their ideas, constantly probing at it, and, you know, thinking what kind of project might they design around it. But a lot of times, you know, we might come in as teachers because we do have our curriculum to cover, getting the kids' input. And then we're thinking, okay, what's the authentic outcome? So typically the authentic outcome for this Great Gatsby novel if you recall back when I showed you the other picture, was this, book report at the end that they were going to do. But kids weren't into that. They weren't super engaged. What's a more authentic outcome? This big question, how can sharing stories from the community help us redefine the American dream? Well, that's something of interest to them. It's their own community. It gets at the deeper themes of the novel. And it's something authentic that they're able to contribute. And this is something that, kids were really excited about doing. And they called them Sueños Unidos, which Betsy's not here anymore. She turned off, but Dreamers Unite, I think is what it means in Spanish. So, you think of, okay, well, what is that center kind of piece that's going to be getting at that big question that's quite authentic? And then, you're able to kind of center everything around that. Now, what I would encourage you to do is probably Deb would say the same thing with her model. When you think about that summative piece, yes, of course, it is going to be the thing that we're going to report out on the end where we want to see all those skills, but it's something that we're constantly going to have students building, as they're going along during this deeper learning experience. So in this particular case, we look at, okay, it's Sueños Unidos, sorry, and you're going to map the standard skills to outcomes. So one of the questions, that was posed at the beginning was really around teachers saying, well, you can't do PBL because, we can't really get at those standards and skills, but of course we can. And what I would encourage you to do is look at, well, what is that project? What is that kind of big product that they're working towards or producing? And, what is going to be necessary for them to show understanding of to be able to get there. So, this is something kind of simple that you could do. You could just put your different strands in the standards, emerging, approaching, meeting, exceeding. Some people have different ways of reporting out on those, but this is really where we're hoping that they're going to get to, is this meeting level. So I would do that first. I wouldn't really complicate things with all the other levels. That's something that, you can be working with students towards developing this, but this is kind of then creating a bit of that roadmap. So you have, okay, here's my roadmap. The blog, the podcast that you're going to produce is going to require these kind of skills. And now you're like, okay, I can really use this as a centerpiece. And, the next step is to really create those milestones. So I love what Deb was mentioning about the project being at the center. We're going to put that project or the outcome that we're hoping students get there, we're going to put that right at the center because everything is going to revolve around that. So we're looking at, okay, the novel discussions that they're going to have. And you see here, speaking and reading, that's where we're going to be able to assess those particular skills in our students. We look at, okay, they're going to capture the community stories. We're capturing those community stories. This is that next, big kind of benchmark. They're going to have to use writing and collaboration, which is one of the skills, if you recall back here, that we identified, right? And so we're mapping those standards or skills and we're mapping them to these various, benchmarks. The draft of their interviews in the blog and podcast, as Deb mentioned, that's kind of a medium risk type of assessment because, we've given them some exposure to writing, we've given them some exposure to speaking, we're expecting them to hopefully be improving as they're going along. And these are the pieces of work that are all part of that project that they are, putting forth. We then, have compare and contrast. You might have them looking at what does the American dream look like in the novel, and based off all the interviews we've done, how is that different? And then, they're having these deeper level discussions. That's where you can really get into the reading and the writing again. And the published blog or podcast that they're producing, hopefully they've really, had a lot of opportunities to demonstrate those different skills. And then there's a reflective journal. And notice how in parentheses, I've really put those just quickly, kind of the standards that we're going to be addressing, mapped to what we have, projected at the beginning. So actually I repeated that twice. I don't know why. So the assessment and feedback, was mentioned at the beginning. The assessment and feedback, I think Felicia is mentioning, so much of that is going to be in the moment. But what we have done is we have created that little spreadsheet, right, that has what we are assessing. So yes, we have these pieces of work that are going to relate to what the students are producing, but we can be assessing this stuff ongoing. That could be done through observations. It could be done through a discussion with the student. It could be done from a piece of work that that student has produced that's been outside of these particular, benchmarks that we put in place. Again, and then step 5, you're reporting out and you're awarding a final mark. I put a check mark next to all of these because what we're hoping is students have demonstrated, right? That every student's demonstrated they can use precise language, integrate digital media. And so these standards, by the way, are coming directly from the standards within the subject that they are learning. And that was from the Common Core, which is, the curriculum they were using. So that's just kind of a quick way to show, how you might consider assessment and a good framework for it. And I created this little thing for everyone. Like I said, this is PBL collab and grab. It's related to that. So you're gonna grab something. This is what I put together. I've been working on. Hopefully it's clear to you. Have your current unit. What's a big question? What's our authentic outcome? We're gonna place that in the middle of this wheel, but we're also going to be sure to map what are the skills, standards, and benchmarks that is related to that authentic outcome. And then we're going to be able to put the skills and standards that are associated with each milestone or benchmark so that we know we're giving them multiple opportunities, and then we're going to report out on learning towards those things at the end. Now, some people have to spit out a grade. I know, because you have to give an A, a B, or a C, or whatever kind of grade. I know some people have that parameter around them. So I would say, look, if you have to do that, you could say, okay, this is A, B, C, or D. I mean, it's not too tough. So this is always what we said. If people really wanted us to give a final grade, we'd just say, okay, we can easily do that because we have evidence of it. So that was that part. Now I wanted to give you guys literally about 15 minutes to just chat, connect this to what you're currently doing. How does this align? What maybe kind of questions come up? So what aligns to what you currently do? What's kind of a new takeaway? And what maybe are some questions that are still circling in your mind? I have this here. I will put this in the chat window. If I can get to the chat window. Yes, here it is. And this is just for you to document insight answers from the group. How do we effectively assess out and report out? Share what you're doing. Any other questions that you have that have come up, put them in here. And I'm going to put you into, let's see if this works. I put elementary and primary is one room, and secondary and high school is another room. Are you able to choose what room you go to? Does it let you choose? Okay. Yes, it worked. Okay. So we're gonna have 15 minutes. Okay. Chat with those people, what you saw. And actually, this is gonna be helpful, right? Because I'm gonna have to give you this framework, right? So it's probably gonna be helpful to look at it. So let me share the framework that I just shared. That's just easy for you to refer back to if you need to. Viewer, okay, here you go. So I'm gonna put this in the chat window, wherever that went, somewhere over here. So I have so many windows open. Here you go, chat window. Okay. And there you go, 2 documents. You might need that first one just for the discussion, and if you want to refer to that diagram that I just showed you, that's there. So go into your breakout rooms. Oh, the person with the birthday closest to today is going to facilitate the discussion. So head to your breakout rooms.
Kyle, do you want me to join a specific one?
Yeah, maybe actually what we could do is I'll go to one and you can go to the other. What do you?
Okay.
Do you want to do second? I see 6 in elementary, 3 and why don't you go to secondary,
Okay.
and then I'll go to elementary primary.
Okay. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye. All right, secondary is returning about 20 seconds. Tatiana, so where are you at now? You're in Italy then?
I am, yeah, in Bologna. It's gotten very cold, but we have a small Christmas market. That's a that's a nice change.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm also kind of looking for a new role, hoping to start my own thing actually, like a fully virtual program to teach English, because I don't know, it just feels like it'll be like more, so I can reach a wider audience and all that. But anyway, it's very complicated. I'm learning that bureaucracy here is going to be very much not fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, very excited to learn about PBL, because again, I've never had an opportunity. Like I taught at charter schools in New York and Boston before coming here, and I experimented with like different, like again, Montessori was big, like arts-based learning, like teaching English language learners. But I just haven't ever had the opportunity to work with, I guess, people that are here in this meeting, where like you really want to focus on making PBL like true. So anyway, I'm going to try to use some of what I learned today in my program. So if it works out, I hope we can stay in touch, and I will let all of you know.
Good. Well, I'm going to give away that we could stay in touch in a second. But Deb, can you share out just, we don't have a lot of time, but any big kind of big takeaways or big insights, things that you guys discussed?
Yeah, I felt like I did a lot of the talking, but Angela was talking about what do you do when you have that one kid in a group that just isn't pulling their weight, or is, and all of the students are getting a group grade. Like, what do you do with that one child that has sat back for 5 weeks and done nothing? So we talked a little bit about responsibilities within a within the project. We also talked about responsibilities, within groups, and developing the skills within a group for the students to call that kid out and say, you're not doing what you need to do, and how much like that takes a different set of skills that perhaps they haven't really been explicitly taught. So talking about problems before they arise, especially with students that are new to PBL. So that was one thing we talked about. And then the second thing was about how you might have a group product at the end of a PBL, but that you should also give the kids an opportunity to create something individual, like a progress portfolio. So just reflection questions at the end of each session that you see them. It could be a homework where they have to show their research on the topic. It could be, a verbal kind of reflection on what progress they've made so far. And all of those things can then also be part of those like low stakes assessments as well. So they have two products at the end. They have their group product and a individual portfolio, but the portfolio also feeds into the group product. So it's not like it's extra, it's actually something that makes the project better.
Great. Excellent insights there. Christine, haven't heard a lot from you. I know we're approaching the end. You got an amazing background there with the tree.
So I kept getting kicked out of the room because people were using the microwave in my house. So I'm really sorry that I contributed absolutely nothing to our group discussions. I'm very sorry about that.
So people turn on the microwave and then you get kicked out.
I should have let them know that I was on the online, but because I'm not in a school background, so my hope for implementing like an assessment system for the program that I'm running is so that I can prove to, say, the government. So the government or the like business community is my administrators, right? So to prove to them that this program has merit, that it actually is showing, actual progress, and the children are understanding and making a contribution to the community, like on the ground. So I'm very interested in listening to everybody's discussions, because I feel like even as a non-school person, that I can still get some information and knowledge from everybody's experiences as school educators. So thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, and thanks so much for what you're doing, right? Because not everybody is in a school setting necessarily. And we've seen, especially now with everything that's been disrupted with COVID and everything else, there's all sorts of programs popping up and ways to educate students. So I'm definitely glad we've connected and stay connected. You know, our room talked a little bit about the inquiry in general, and, you know, does inquiry go together with project-based learning? And we said, yes, those two can be married. Sometimes the inquiry leads to the end when kids actually take action, and they're not necessarily taking an action that they had a lot of time to reflect on and create something that was of quite meaning. So we kind of looked at how we could, you know, marry those two. So lots of good discussions. Look, I know it's close to the time. If I could get your permission just to share a way to potentially go deeper with this group and take a couple minutes to do that. Is that okay with everyone if I just share for a couple minutes just how we can stay connected and go deeper? Just put your hand up if you're like, yes, that's okay. All right. My mentor said, make sure you ask their permission first. So I'm asking your permission. Okay. So again, you know, I brought everyone together this whole 12 days of PBL thing because, you know, I really, full disclosure, I'm trying to connect as much as possible, you know, this community around deeper learning. I think it's of value. I, for myself, have seen what it's like to just be kind of siloed and isolated and going about this alone. It's kind of like pushing this snowball, right, up a hill. And it's you're all alone. It takes a very long time to do it, as opposed to really gaining momentum. And I've seen firsthand and witnessed just the power of these kind of conversations, discussions, and just the insights that it gives people to bring back to their own campus and really kind of get support from each other. So that's what I'm trying to build, is a bit of this global community that comes together for these discussion sessions. Now, of course, for this, you know, whole discussion session, PBL, you know, collab and grab, in addition to just getting insights on effective PBL implementation, you're going to grab a resource as well, grow in your ability, gain connections to a community. I don't want to, again, be the one who's kind of leading this. I want to be more kind of behind the scenes moderating it. And I love for people to facilitate, and each kind of session that we have addressing a different question, if someone's facilitating that, and bringing a resource to the group to really have us kind of dive deeper and be able to support what we're doing, and then just, you know, have some good discussion questions. When I asked, and this is Amanda's teachers, I asked, what did you enjoy most about connecting? I thought it was going to be, you know, a framework. I thought it was going to be this you know, thing that I gave, but mainly people just want to discuss, connect to other educators, and get feedback on what they're doing. So what will we discuss? So I'm centering this around monthly discussions. It'll start next year in January. We're going to take a break, obviously, for the holidays. And each month is going to center around a different discussion question. These are the biggest questions that people had around PBL and implementation in their own context. I won't go through each of them, but just to say that, you know, there's someone in this room, virtual room, that's doing one of these things incredibly well. I know a decent amount of people and schools I'm working with that I want to feature, and you might know more. And the idea is just to feature a school that is doing this well when it comes to community partnerships, mandated curriculum, hard and soft skills, feature what they're doing. They kind of lead the discussion and share a bit of a resource that's helping support them. We then have these deeper discussions, and then, you know, get this quick grab resource at the end. I won't go through all these, but, you know, Betsy was on the call, and, you know, this is her PD coordinator, who we worked with and saw so many shifts and changes in his educators because of this. Just some other people as well who have benefited. And so again, you know, this is something I offered for free tonight as just kind of a window into what it might look like. Obviously, knowing that, you know, professional development is partly an investment in ourselves and growth. And I've created this because I think it's going to offer us some deeper learning around this subject, rather than just, you know, set kind of workshops that we go to at a conference. This is what I just, you know, I spent this amount on a course, actually my coaching that I get weekly around the things that I'm doing. So, you know, I do try to invest in myself, and the commitment that this would be for anyone here who's interested, it's 90 minutes a month. It is not mandated that you attend all the sessions. You can attend the ones that are really more relevant to where your needs are. What's the investment? So it's $725 US dollars for one practitioner. However, because you came tonight and I'm trying to incentivize people coming with the team, this is what it would cost if you brought 2 people for a team, and then that's what it costs for bringing 3 people to the team. So around $500 US dollars if you get 3 people on a team. So far already we have 22 people signed up across different schools. I really, again, want to get this word out so we can have as many different schools represented. Do you get a certificate? Yes, you do get a certificate for professional development hours, which I know is so important that Deb told me about, right? We got to get the pieces.
And a sticker.
Yeah, and a sticker. Yeah, you'll get some kind of sticker. I got to make those. So that's 35% off. Yao Chung has a lot of people signed up. I've got a school that is in South America doing some really great things that has joined as well. And hopefully, Amanda, you got a couple of people joining from Taipei American School. So we're getting a lot of representation. Hopefully Beacon House, we get some people joining from there. I know Beacon House, you guys have already committed a lot of your time, so I appreciate that. This is a bit of, showing what it could potentially be. I will again share details in a follow-up email. But that is hopefully something that is of interest to you and that you feel like is something that you want to bring a team on board for. So you're not pushing, a snowball up a hill by yourself, because we know there's strength in numbers. So that's that. Are there any questions around this, the monthly forms? All right, we are going to end then with a final reflection in the chat window and one last picture. So in the chat window, one word reflection that reflects how you're feeling leaving this meeting or session. So one word reflection. All right, let's see. Feasible. I like that word. That's a good one. All right. Ready. All right, good. I like that. Ready to go. Yeah, and Tatiana is mentioning if we could share LinkedIn profiles, great. I think probably a lot of people, more people on Twitter, right, than LinkedIn, but that would be great, right, to be able to share our profiles. Again, I'll connect us. If people are comfortable and okay with it, in the follow-up email that I send, I can include the other emails too, if you want to reach out to someone directly. So that could keep us connected. Okay, holiday picture. Christine, you already got a tree behind you. This is our final thing. I'm gonna put my antlers on. Anything festive that you have for the holidays. It doesn't have to be holiday related. Nice mask, Deb. I like that. All right, here we go. Yeah, I like the wine. Angela, you got it. You're getting ready. Okay, you got something, Miriam? No? All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Happy holidays. All right, everyone. We'll see you and we'll be in touch.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Deb.
Bye. You're welcome.
Bye.
See you
Happy
soon.
holidays, everybody.
You too. Take care.
Bye.
Kyle, we
Here,
want to
all
talk
right.
to you personally. Okay.
Okay, you do. Okay, great. Let me make sure this is not live because this is on YouTube. Wait, let me make sure we go.